This is Too Good to Be True, written by Craig A. Falconer, narrated by Megan Carter. Chapter 1. And that's all for now, you guys, I say, smiling towards the tripod I can barely see thanks to all the bright lights around it. These famous Gravesend Hotel views of the Eiffel Tower are even better after dark, so make sure you join me again for my moonlit rooftop dinner in a few hours. Peace and love. BB bye-bye! I press the handheld remote to kill the video as soon as that stupid sign-off is out of my mouth. After that, I don't even lift my phone from the tripod or turn off the lights on my way to collapsing on the enormous bed. It's been a long day. They all are lately. And right now, the idea of a 2-hour live stream over dinner sounds about as appealing as a tightrope walk from my balcony to the Eiffel Tower itself. BB bye-bye! Every time I say it these days, I have to fight to stop my eyes from rolling into the back of my head. It seemed like a good idea when I started making videos, what with my name being Bianca Blane and the alliteration fitting with the tone of my old content. Now I often find myself wishing I'd gone with anything else, at least until I start thinking that whatever sign-off I had picked, I would hate it by now after having to say it so many thousands of times. I get 10, maybe 15 seconds before Jason lets himself into the suite. "Nailed it again, superstar!" he beams. His words mean nothing. Jason is everything you'd expect a social media influencer's endorsement manager to be, a well-dressed and fast-talking bullshit artist. I didn't always feel like this about everything, but 3 years of relentless attention takes a toll. When I was rising through the ranks, all I wanted was more eyeballs. Now that I'm on top, all I want is an hour to myself. I try not to be ungrateful for all I've got, which is more than anyone could ever need. But lately I've been feeling like a human being isn't designed to handle this much attention. Don't get me wrong. Most of it is good. I used to make funny videos back when I was still in high school, and that's what made my name. Then I got a little bit older and started getting bigger makeup and fashion deals with endorsements and sponsorships that blew my old advertising revenue out of the water. I got into high-volume streaming when everyone else did, and now most of my life happens live on camera, even when I'm not doing anything exciting or really much of anything at all. It's been this weird cycle where I got famous enough to make a lot of money, but then I got so famous that people want to see me all the time and I barely get a second to enjoy any of it. Working with the Gravesend hotel chain is usually pretty good because they fly me to the nicest cities and put me up in the nicest rooms, but I've put in so many streaming hours during this trip that I might as well have been at home. All Jason ever talks about is metrics. Metrics, metrics, metrics. The main video streaming platform changed its ranking algorithm a few months ago to start rewarding hours online way more than before. It used to be all about viewing hours. So 5 million people viewing for an average of 2 hours translated into a daily score of 10 million. But now they multiply that score by the number of hours a streamer spends online in any given day. If I'm online for 2 hours and get 5 million people watching the whole thing, I get my score of 10 million. But if someone else is online for 10 hours and gets only 1 million people watching for an average of only 2 hours, they get 20 million points instead of the 2 million they would have gotten under the older system. Rewarding quantity over quality is a naked attempt to tie big-name streamers to our cameras and turn us into practically full-time content creators. And the sheer amount of extra money that's at stake for each position in the rankings means we don't have much choice but to play along. "The metrics are on fire today," Jason grins. "Even if we only put in 13 hours today, we should be okay for a spot in the top 5. I don't even know where to begin with a sentence like that. Only 13 hours? If we put those hours in? Jason hardly does anything for me. Granted, he helped force open a lot of doors back in the day, but he's been handsomely rewarded for that. The smartest thing he ever did was put a contract under my nose, and the stupidest thing I ever did was sign it without considering every clause. Because I did, I'm stuck following Jason's reasonable business advice for at least another 4 years. If I unilaterally turn something down, he can sue me for breach of contract. He wouldn't, because the money he could claw out of a settlement would be less than he can make by keeping me sweet and netting his cool 20% of everything I earn. For the past 2 years, I've been giving 51% of my net earnings to an impact-based nonprofit that dishes out funds to individual charities based on an assessment of what will have the most positive impact for children in the world's poorest regions. I'm no hero or anything. The 49% I keep is still too much for one person. I started doing this when I was struggling to get out of bed because I had nothing pulling me out and a crushing weight of pressure holding me down. Finding a purpose bigger than myself has been crucial to stay sane in a world where I know I'm at Jason's beck and call for 4 more years. It hurts me to think of how much money he's making from everything I do, but at least I know that a bigger chunk is going somewhere worthwhile. There's something psychologically important in that. Jason doesn't know about this, and neither does anyone else. If they did, I figure it wouldn't really be charity at all. It would just be an expensive way to get a lot of good PR. Anyway, the point is that I can't get rid of Jason, and I can't say no to his ideas unless, as the contract puts it, he suggests something that a reasonable person would deem overly taxing for the income generated. Believe me, I know full well that I couldn't even try to tell an average person on the street that anything I do is overly taxing for the income it generates. I know how first world my problems sound right now, complaining about sitting in front of a camera in Paris while I make millions and millions of dollars per year. But it comes down to this. I feel trapped. I feel trapped by Jason. I feel trapped by my own success. And I just feel trapped in my own skin. Don't talk to me about metrics, I groan. It comes out sounding the way I feel, more tired than angry. The bed bulges as Jason sits down.
Everything okay?
He asks.
You don't seem yourself.
Oh, that's rich. I dial down the ultra-happy fashionista girl act in his presence for 1 minute and suddenly I'm not myself? He has no idea. I feel like I'm burning out, I tell him. The words are true, but I choose them carefully, because I know that's the one thing he fears most. I'm Jason's meal ticket. I'm the cash cow he wants to milk for everything it's got and the racehorse he wants to whip within an inch of its life to rake in every penny on the table. He acts like my friend, but he only ever books in downtime when he thinks I need it to keep the uptime dollars rolling in.
You'll sleep well here,
he insists, still forcing a friendly tone. I know that's an act, even if he's too stupid to realize that my usual chipperness is too.
There's the jet lag, there was the problem with your steak being overcooked. It's not been a perfect day, Bianca, but you've handled it well.
I sit up, lifting my face from the mattress. It's more than that, Jason. I know it will cost us in the big monthly rankings, and I know the big brands have started using those to allocate their biggest deals, but is there any way we can go dark for a few days? Not unannounced or anything crazy like that, just a break to let me get some energy back. Even if it's a cash hit for a while, I feel like it's either that or hitting a wall before much longer. I wait quietly for his reply, watching the gears turn.
Well, there is something we could look into,
he says. I perk up.
I know of an offer that went out to Lulu yesterday for a week-long stay in a new tropical resort,
Jason continues. The Lulu in question is one of my constant rivals for endorsements, and she's currently numero uno in the overall streaming ranks, so it's no surprise that Jason screws up his face when he mentions her name. I press. And
her people said no,
he says.
You see, the resort said the stay would be offline. They were looking for an endorsement once it's over, but they insisted that she couldn't be online at all until the week was up. So far, I only know about this from a source close to her makeup artist, but I know for sure that the offer wouldn't make up for a week of lost streaming hours. If you're really feeling burnt out, though, it's probably the best mitigating option we'll have. I could put the feelers out to...
I'm in, I decide. I don't even care what kind of resort it is. Right now, I'd sleep in a volcano if I could do it offline. Jason scratches his chin.
On it,
he says, heading for the door and reaching for his phone practically before the words have even reached me. One thing about Jason is that, for better or worse, he delivers. And with how I'm feeling at the moment, with this painful need for a little bit of downtime, I don't see what could be worse than the status quo. I feel myself smiling, a real smile, for the first time in far too long. I mean, really, We're talking about a week-long stay in a fancy resort that will be going all out to win my ringing endorsement. What's the worst that could happen? Chapter 2. I'm on my way to London. When Jason first hinted about an offer to stay in a new tropical resort, I have to admit I was expecting something more like the Caribbean or the South Pacific. Geography wasn't exactly my favorite subject in school, but I still know where the tropics are, and I also know that London isn't in the same region of the map. So far, I've only gotten a handful of answers to my boat full of questions. It's been a whirlwind few days since I asked for a break. They were busy days, but they felt easier than usual since I knew the break was coming. My audience wasn't exactly thrilled to hear that I'm going to be offline for a week, which I guess is a compliment, and either way, I'll have something new to tell them about once this week is up. As for the supposedly tropical resort, I'm under an embargo agreement that means I can't even publicly mention the name or location until my stay is over. Between us, it's called Indigo Sands, and it's the craziest place I've ever heard of. If you're thinking Indigo Sands doesn't sound like somewhere you could drive to from London, you're thinking the same thing I was. But Indigo Sands is like nowhere else in the world, because Indigo Sands is a high-tech controlled environment that exists inside a huge dome. I know. I could hardly believe it either. Since signing the deal, I've seen some promotional videos of what I can expect. Apparently the resort is going to open for real next month, and the only other guests this week will be some competition winners and staff who are there to test everything out. All I really know for sure is that it's a very premium kind of place. There are 200 rooms, all suites, and more high-end amenities than you can shake a stick at. The videos in the brochure make it look like a real outdoor resort, but being in my line of work has taught me that things can look different from the other side of the camera. I know only too well how images can be manipulated and how reality can be airbrushed into looking like pretty much anything you want. So I'm going into this with a pretty high level of doubt. The videos boast about the ultra-high-definition curved screens that form the inside of the high dome and make it look like a real sky, but surely my eyes will know the difference. It's the same with what they say about the waves in the artificial ocean and the warmth of the artificial sun. They'll be impressive, I figure, but they can't be genuinely convincing. Maybe it could pass as authentic for someone who hasn't felt the tropical sun. Maybe. But if Indigo Sands is pricing itself as a premium destination, it's going to attract people who are accustomed to the real thing, and I just don't see how there can be any substitute for the real thing. Don't get me wrong. This week, I don't care. I would have been happy with a week offline at home in New York, or a week offline inside a volcano like I told Jason a few days ago. I'm not going to walk into Indigo Sands looking for things to complain about or looking for cracks in the facade they're presenting. I'm going to walk in looking for a nice, quiet week. I'm going to walk in looking for a chance to clear my head while the water hits my toes. I don't care that the waves and the sunlight I'll be feeling are all man-made creations. It's hardly any faker than the always-online digital world I spend most of my time in anyway. The biggest difference is that for once I'll be able to do what I want when I want, away from Jason and his endless list of endorsement opportunities, code for obligations, and away from the suffocating online attention I get from obsessive fans and haters alike. When I step into Indigo Sands, my surroundings might be artificial, but the peace and quiet will be real, real, real.
There it is,
Jason says, pointing down to a domed structure as our flight descends into London. It doesn't look all that enormous compared to what I was imagining, but I guess a 200-room resort wouldn't look enormous from the sky. It's still way bigger than the stadiums and other landmarks, which makes me wonder what everyone else thinks it is. The structure is conspicuously big, and the domed exterior doesn't have any kind of markings on it, which I guess will change when the resort is publicly announced. They'll probably have giant curved screens on the outside too, I figure, so they can advertise it however they want. My endorsement is probably going to be a big part of their marketing plan given how much they're paying for it, so there's a chance people will see my face from the sky in a few weeks. That's a weird thing to think about. It somehow feels different from people seeing me on all the billboards in countless cities, even if I can't quite put my finger on why. How have they kept this secret? I asked Jason. Like, what's the official story of what's in the dome? If I lived in London, I would maybe know this, since it's clearly been a huge construction project that must have taken a long time to put together. I haven't heard a single thing about it, though, which makes me think they've spun a low-key story to keep it out of the international headlines.
It's been billed as a multi-purpose leisure development, he replies. The developers have kept their cards very close to their chests, but they haven't told any outright lies about it. I mean, it's a giant dome that sticks out from the houses and skyscrapers like a sore thumb. So, they couldn't exactly pretend it was going to be a factory or some office space.
Jason doesn't often smile or laugh. His face isn't the kind that suits happiness or even levity. He laughs a little bit at his own comment about office space, though. I don't. It's windy and rainy when we land, but nothing too bad. It's also London, after all, so the weather is definitely nothing unexpected. A car is waiting for us at the airport. There's no crowd since no one knows I'm here. Jason is always good at that, at least. And I don't hang around in the rain for a second longer than I have to. I'm surprised to see Jason lean in through the door to talk to me from outside rather than climb in after me. I know he isn't staying at the resort with me, which is another nice thing about the week ahead. But I thought he would be coming along to make sure everything starts smoothly.
I'm not allowed in until your week is up,
he says, shouting over the sound of the rain hitting the roof. It's really coming down.
I need to take your phone and your watch, too. Everything will be safe and it'll all be waiting for you as soon as you come out. I'll have it with me all the time. Promise.
I give him my phone, then hesitate for a second before unclipping my watch strap. When it comes off, I feel naked. I understand why it has to go, because my watch records audio 24 hours a day. It's kind of like a car's dash cam. It constantly records and constantly wipes out the locally stored recordings unless I send them to my phone or post them online. It's perfect for times when I'm not in front of a camera for video streaming, and it means I never miss out on being able to post something, even if it's just audio, whenever something remotely interesting happens. If I didn't live my life online and in the public eye, I'd maybe think more about the privacy issues that the endless recording function creates. But my life is what it is, and it's not what it's not.
Make the most of this break,
Jason says, getting ready to close the door.
Because we're not going to be able to afford another week offline, probably ever, okay?
I do a kind of half shrug, half nod. Right now, I don't want to think about anything beyond the end of the week. As the door closes behind him, I feel instantly liberated. No phone, no watch, no Jason. I haven't felt so free since... I don't even know. Hey there, Bianca! A chirpy female voice booms into my ears from the car's speakers. Her accent is English. There's a tinted privacy divider between the back and the front, but something about the voice makes me sure that it's definitely not coming from the driver. We're so excited to have you join us at Indigo Sands, the woman continues. London traffic isn't a whole lot of fun, especially at this time of day, so please settle in and feel free to explore as much or as little of the welcome pack as you like. For a taste of the tropical wonders that await, please touch the screen in front of you to select a welcome cocktail. We'll see you soon. The screen lights up with two options. One of the round buttons is blue with Ocean Breeze Raspberry written underneath. The other is red, Strawberry Sun. I take the blue one. As I start sipping, I see that the lady on the speakers really wasn't wrong about traffic. I pick up the welcome pack but don't open it yet. I'm gazing out at the rain and the wind, which is only getting worse. The promise of a tropical paradise within short driving distance is pretty incredible, and now that Jason is gone, I'm really excited to get there. Even though I've been sleeping pretty well since this break was organized, I'm feeling tired. I guess it's been a while since I had a real cocktail, too, so that's probably playing a part. Before I know it, my eyes are closing. The last thing I picture is a strawberry sun beating down over the crystal blue ocean. I smile. Soon these images in my head will all be real. At least, real enough. Chapter 3. I awake with a start. I don't have my watch or my phone to check the time, but I don't think it's been long. Either way, I'm here. The upbeat voice from earlier tells me that before I even see outside. Welcome to Indigo Sands, Bianca. We're so glad to have you here. As my eyes open and adjust to the waking world, I see that the woman is really here this time, not just a disembodied voice coming at me through the speakers. Her name tag says Beth. I'd say she's around as young as me, 23 or 24, with a smile that looks friendly and authentic. And speaking of looking authentic, I sit up straight and peer beyond Beth, looking past her to see the world outside, to see the dome outside. I know, Beth smiles. Pretty incredible, right? I can only nod dumbly as I step out of the car. I'm standing right in front of the resort's reception area now, but I'm only looking up. The sky is so blue. The clouds are so perfectly wispy, like on a postcard come to life. In the calmness of the quiet resort, I can hear a hint of the gentle waves nearby, and when I finally look down, I see palm trees with their fronds dancing in a remarkable artificial wind. One other thing that hits me right away is the temperature. It is hot in here. Out here? In here. In. I'm in a dome, after all. Despite everything my senses are telling me, and despite the doubts my brain would have had until a few minutes ago that any of this was truly possible, I'm inside. Would you like another cocktail to welcome you properly? Beth asks, right after she reaches into the car to take my empty glass from earlier. Wait a second. The cocktail. The drink they gave me minutes before I suddenly fell asleep, until I woke up in this place. Something doesn't feel right. Where am I? I ask. Indigo Sands, Beth smiles. I study her expression, looking for hints of unease. When the cocktail came back into my mind, an uncomfortable thought came with it. I could be anywhere. I don't know what time it is. Hell, do I even know for sure what day it is? That drink could have had anything in it, and they could have brought me anywhere to pass it off as the dome. Right now, that almost makes more sense to me than the idea of all of this being man-made. I want to leave the dome and come in again while I'm awake to see the entrance, I say. There's no need to look for unease in Beth's expression now. It's positively etched on every inch of her face. Why? She asks. I pause to choose my words carefully, then decide to just be as straightforward as I can. Because I don't think we're in London anymore, and I don't think this is a dome. I think I might have been drugged, and I think I might have been flown somewhere else. Beth chuckles, but it somehow doesn't strike me as a sign of condescension. It's more like a sign of amusement. It's a lot to take in, she says. I can understand that. If you like, I could show you the walls. Sure, I say. Beth takes a small radio from her pocket and speaks into it. Could we kill a few wall screens for Bianca, and maybe a few on the ceiling too? She requests. Within seconds, a small section of the picturesque blue sky turns jet black. To say I'm stunned by this sight would be an understatement for the ages. And there's the wall, Beth says cheerily, pointing a finger to guide my eyes as soon as I'm able to tear them down from the ceiling. Sure enough, a section of the wall, which until now has made it look like the tropical landscape goes on and on forever, instantly turns just as black as the dead area of the sky. Now, maybe a few seconds of full transparency, just for fun, Beth suggests. Whoever she's talking to is fast as well as obedient, because they act upon her order within seconds. Even more incredibly than in the previous demonstration, the wall and ceiling change once again. This time, though, it's every inch of the surrounding walls and the whole of the ceiling that changes. My jaw almost hits the floor, which is the floor, not the ground, as the dome becomes entirely transparent. I figure it has to be one-way glass or something similar to make sure people in the sky can't see what's down here, just like I couldn't from my plane. But whatever it is, it lets me see out. I'm hot and I'm dry, with a gentle breeze moving the tips of my hair, even as a fierce storm rages all around the dome. This is truly incredible. And back, Beth instructs her radio. The screen controller on the other side of her instructions brings the screens back to life as easily as they were cut. And just like that, I'm back in paradise. That's the last time we'll break the immersion, I promise. Beth smiles. I grin. Fine by me, I say, marveling at everything around us and looking forward to a week of technology-assisted bliss. Fine by me. Chapter 4. Everything on the ground is real. I would know that for 100% certain even if Beth hadn't so adamantly told me. I'm about to put my head down for night 6 of 7, and to be honest, I had already stopped wondering what was real and what wasn't by the time I shut my eyes on night 1. My eyes are thoroughly fooled by the sights on the screens, which I keep forgetting are screens other than at moments like this when I'm consciously reflecting on everything, but touch is a far more reliable sense. The feeling of sand beneath my toes can't be faked, and neither can the pleasant warmth of the water as it hits my hot skin. Sure, the sun isn't really a sun, and the heat is being very evenly spread from some source I don't understand, but I'm still feeling the heat. And the sand is actual sand, no doubt, just like the palm trees are as real can be. Like I said, it's day 6. The one thing I can say about this place to best express how I feel is that I wish it was still day 1, because I don't want to be leaving so soon. My beachfront suite is pristine and the bed is fit for a princess, but that's not what I like so much. After all, I get a lot of that in my real life when I'm staying wherever Jason decides is the best place to be that week. What I like is that I wake up every morning with the sunlight, fake or not, and I do everything at the same kind of natural feeling pace. There are no clocks, no responsibilities, and thanks be to Jesus, there are no damn metrics to worry about. I've been a little bit surprised that I don't get bored doing pretty much nothing except sipping slow coffees and watching the waves. My usual life is so hectic and go, which I'm sure is true for a lot of people no matter what kind of industries they're in. So this respite has been way overdue. The social atmosphere in Indigo Sands is kind of unusual, but I think a lot of that is because the resort isn't really open yet. There's a group of competition winners who said they're here for 4 weeks, right until the grand opening. I guess that's how the developers can be sure they won't break the information embargo. For someone like me, I think they're less concerned since they know I deal with embargoes and NDAs day in and day out. There's a lot to lose by breaking one, given that discretion is such an important thing in my line of work. I get advance access to products and services all the time and always have to stay alert and make sure I don't say too much to my followers. I don't ever have to worry about saying too much to my friends because, well, I don't really have any friends. This week has given me a lot of time for reflection, and the one type of negative feeling Indigo Sands has brought me is that my real life is empty in a lot of ways I haven't been seeing. It's almost like I haven't had time to notice, what with how busy Jason keeps me and how many hours of streaming I have to put in. But when I first saw the competition winners chatting at dinner, a group of 4 women around 10 years older than me, it brought certain things into focus. As soon as I paused to think about it, I realized I really don't have any true friends at all. I used to always have a nice, broad group of girlfriends, and I was always very close to a few of them. But the price of my financially rewarding success has been losing them all, and now I can't think of a single one I'm still in regular contact with, let alone close to. There's never a shortage of guys, and I'm on friendly terms with a lot of girls who work on various parts of my brand and business. But friends? Not for me. Not for a long time. Everyone who works here is very attractive, and they're all pretty young, which I'm sure isn't by accident. Now that I'm starting to reflect on everything, I can see that I haven't really been interested in any of the guys working as lifeguards or in the morning fitness classes, but for the first day or 2, I did find myself longingly looking at the 4-strong friend group of competition winners. I guess this is probably a lesson, or maybe a reminder, that we want what we don't have. Like I said, being me brings no shortage of male attention, but it basically leaves no time for female bonding. I struck up a conversation with one of the ladies on the second night, and she invited me to their table for drinks after dinner. They all knew who I was, but they were just about old enough not to be starstruck. One of them has an 11-year-old niece who would have killed to meet me, she said, which kind of shows the generational dynamics at play. I figure it would be like someone my age meeting a really famous old singer or something. It would be cool and all, but it wouldn't mean as much as it would to someone who had grown up with them. They had a lot of questions about why I'm here and how it feels to be so far away from the public eye. Answer, amazingly awesome. and I had some questions about them, too. They're all English, and it turns out one of them won a competition to enjoy a sneak peek at the true nature of the mysterious multi-purpose leisure development inside this dome. They weren't told what it was until they all committed to staying for 4 weeks, on the understanding that they couldn't go back to their outside lives before then and would be taken to another secure facility if they wanted to leave the dome early for any reason. Needless to say, none of them have any plans to leave a single day before they have to. It's been really nice getting to know them, and that's really highlighted an area of my life I've neglected for too long. One of them is a filmmaker, Natasha, and tomorrow we're going to play around with a camera from the Creativity Center until it's time for me to check out. I didn't even know the camera was there until she mentioned it tonight. We're planning to go out snorkeling, and I'm intrigued to see if there are any fish out there in the artificial ocean. It would be cool to reach the edge of the dome and touch it with my hand, too, but I know I'd probably get in trouble from Beth if I did that. Beth is another person I've spent a lot of time with. She lives here and will work in 2-week shifts once the resort fully opens, which is how all of the workers will operate. She said it's kind of like an oil rig in that way, but I don't know. That feels like a weird thing to compare this paradise to. Her work seems nothing but fun, and I'm sure there are going to be thousands of applicants for every role once the nature of this place becomes public knowledge. Before I came to bed tonight, I asked Beth what kind of animals I might see in the water. She smiled at me. "What's life without a few surprises, Bianca?" she asked. And yeah, she's right. Before Indigo Sands, it had been far too long since I felt wonder and surprise. I've enjoyed the sand underfoot all week, and I've been repeatedly fooled by the sky overhead since day 1, so I think it's pretty fitting that on my last day I'll be checking out what's under the water. Indigo Sands is a surprise factory, and as I close my eyes for the last night here, I'm excited to see what final wonders it has in store. Chapter 5. What a day! It's been so long since I shot any cool videos with a handheld camera, and playing around with my new friend Natasha and the resort's amazing cameras has been the perfect activity for my last morning here. For the past few years, I've hardly ever not had a camera pointed in my face, but getting back to what got me started, video creation, makes me feel like I found my calling all over again. Best of all, Natasha knows so many things about filmmaking that I've never even considered. I wouldn't call them tricks because that makes them sound cheap, and I can definitely see why she's been a successful documentarian. What an interesting woman she is, too. It's technically true that I've traveled to more countries and cities than she has, but there is literally zero doubt that she has experienced 1,000,000 times more. I'm always being shepherded around by Jason and the social engagement manager of whatever firms we're working with, whereas Natasha has traveled on her own terms. At one point, I said I want to be her when I grow up. She laughed, but to be honest, I was barely joking. A decade ago, that's exactly the kind of thing I would have wanted to do. I never set out to be famous or even rich, really. I just made my funny videos and rode the waves of attention that came along to take me higher and higher. I'm not complaining either because I know how fortunate and privileged I've been. It's just that this whole week, and now especially my time with Natasha, is making me realize how unfulfilled I really am. Jason doesn't just keep me busy either. The more I've been thinking about it, the clearer I can see that he basically medicates me with the jewels, the guys, and sometimes more literally with the black market pills he says are as common among high-achieving public figures as they are harmless. But without all of that, I can see clearly. There's a lot of irony in the idea of seeing more clearly under a fake sky than I've been able to under a real one, but here we are. The sun is really beating down today, and Beth told me on day 1 that I had to treat it like the real sun in terms of stuff like sunglasses and sunscreen. Natasha and I make sure we have some bottles of water when we finally head out on a little canoe. A guide comes with us, company policy apparently, and he tells us more than Beth did about what we will and won't find in the water. He's a Baywatch-looking kind of guy, in keeping with the aesthetic the Indigo Sands recruitment team clearly favors across the board. There's more than politeness at play when he introduces himself and very slowly helps us into our life vests, but Natasha is the only one of us showing any interest in return. And as for what we'll find in the water? Nothing. The guide tells us that it's been proving difficult for the development team to simulate a functioning aquatic ecosystem without any large predators, And it goes without saying that no company in the world is going to willingly introduce large ocean predators, i.e. sharks, into their controlled environment. Indigo Sands just won't sell itself as a scuba safari kind of place, he tells us, at least until those kinks are worked out. This is the first time something has come up that the development team couldn't solve. Regardless, I'm still in awe of the sun and the waves and everything else, even if a lot of it can be boiled down to an aggregation of slightly improved technologies that already existed. After all, wave pools are nothing new. UV tanning sunbeds are nothing new. Wraparound screens are nothing new. High-end resorts with immaculate amenities are nothing new. But it's the scale of this place, the feel of the wind, just the grandeur of it all. Most of all, it's the vision. I'm in London. From time to time, I have to keep telling myself that. I'm not in St. Bart's. I'm not in Bora Bora. I'm in London, where, as the locals would say, it was pissing down rain and blowing a gale when I arrived. But on the other side of the doors, inside this dome, paradise, and nothing less. Natasha and I have a great final few hours playing around with the camera and sharing our unique takes on angles and framing while we float around in paradise. So much so that she stops paying much attention to the guide after hardly any time at all. Back on shore, I'm sad to be leaving. I didn't have a lot of luggage, so my final packing doesn't take long. I say goodbye to the ladies from the competition group, reminding them how lucky they are to have a few more weeks left in here, and then I hunt down Beth. I thank her for everything and promise I'll be back someday, and also that I'll single her out for praise when it's time for a review and public endorsement. I only have dollars with me, no pounds, but I leave them with her in recognition of all she did to make me feel comfortable. There were a lot of small touches across the days and nights, and no request was ever too big or too small. "You're a good soul, Bianca," she tells me. "Don't let the bullshit drown that out." I carry these words with me as I make my way to the car that will drive me out of here. I want to see the dome as I leave, and this time I do get the chance. My unseen driver takes me into a short tunnel first, down a dip like the kind that enters a multi-level parking lot, and when we get back to ground level, there's a huge door in front of us. It rises from the ground to let us out, and only a few seconds later I can see the dome behind us. Aside from the unusual shape and conspicuous location, it looks surprisingly mundane from the outside. Seeing it like this makes everything on the inside feel even more remarkable. Once again, I'm in awe of the vision of the people behind it, and one thing is for sure, they're getting my ringing endorsement. There's no rain, but London traffic is bad again, and even without a cocktail, I can feel myself dozing off to sleep somewhere between the dome and the airport. I awaken with a jolt after who knows how long, and when my eyes open, I see something silvery, something metallic. Is that? No way. It is. This makes as much sense to my brain as a fish on a unicycle, but when my eyes blink again and things become clearer, I see the truth. I'm looking up at a huge, domed ceiling. Chapter 6. I'm in the dome? Still in the dome? Back in the dome? I don't know. Right now, I don't know anything. What happened? Am I really inside the same dome? And if I am, why does it suddenly look so industrial? It's not black like when the screens went out. No. This dome is metal, like I imagine the inside of a warehouse or a hangar would look. I sit bolt upright, and what I see next makes my heart pound like never before. I'm in some kind of pod, secured to a bed with ankle restraints and with some kind of helmet tightly strapped to my head. I grab it and feel wires, then frantically look around and see what must be literally thousands of identical pods sprawled around the vast and decidedly non-tropical dome. "What the fu-" "Relax," a male voice pipes up from behind me. It's Jason, and although I dislike him just as much as I want to know what the hell he's gotten me into, his mere presence is somewhat comforting right now. Jason walks into view and puts a gentle hand on my thigh. The first time he's physically touched me in as long as I can remember, given how keen he always is to keep himself away from any potential allegations of that kind of impropriety.
"It's okay, Bianca,"
he says.
"It's over."
As I'm looking into Jason's eyes and trying to stutter out one of the trillion questions in my mind, I feel the helmet on my head loosen.
"Indeed it is,"
another voice announces. A second man walks into view, this one a stranger in a lab coat.
"Your neurosimulation is over, Miss Blane."
He smiles.
"What did you make of it?"
Chapter 7. Neurosimulation? I echo in disbelief. It takes no small effort to even force out the words. Jason takes a deep breath and raises a hand to silence the scientist. Apparently he thinks he can explain this better.
"None of it was real,"
he tells me.
"Indigo Sands only exists in a simulated metaverse. These guys have developed technology that can read your brain waves and then implant suggestions to reframe your thoughts. A week-long stay in Indigo Sands is like a lucid dream you live out over the course of a week in real time, on your terms as long as everything stays within the developer's parameters. At least, that's how they explained it to me."
While Jason has been talking, the other guy has been loosening my ankle restraints. I stand up and look around, then start walking around. I don't even know what to say. I don't see anyone in any of the other pods, but as I look around, my eyes confirm that there really are thousands of them. They're all empty, but they're obviously going to be full at some point. Where are Natasha and the others? I ask. Were our dreams, connected? The scientist takes over, stepping in front of Jason.
"Miss Blane,
Bianca, I tell him. Even though it seems like nothing compared to all of this, I hate being called Miss Blane, and right now my body doesn't have room for any more hate."
"Of course. Bianca,"
the man goes on.
"You weren't dreaming. That's an understandable take, but Jason is wrong to explain it like that. You were in a deep state of something closer to meditative relaxation, in which the mind is remarkably open to neurological imprinting. Everyone who enters this dome will stay in the same resort you did, but they will have their own experience based on what their own desires manifest. Natasha was a figment of your imagination, just as a new romantic partner might be the priority of someone else's. The presence of competition winners during your early stay was one of the parameters our programmers allowed, and your mind chose to use that parameter to manifest a female friend with interests you shared." I'm stunned. That's a common, consistent, and complete feeling right now, but it's stronger than ever. If I made Natasha up, how do you know about our shared interests? I ask. I didn't tell you anything about that. The man uses his hand to beckon me away from the vast rows of empty pods and towards an office near the side of the dome. I step in and find another 4 people there. They all turn to look at me and study me like I'm some kind of wounded animal that just wandered in off the street.
"Legal and psych teams,"
Jason whispers.
"The developers want to cover themselves."
It's easy to tell who is who. The 2 male lawyers are both in sharp suits, and the psychologists, a man and a woman, are a lot more casual. My eyes flit back to the guy in the lab coat who seems to be in charge.
"Head developer,"
Jason whispers again.
"Peter Carlson."
"Peter is fine,"
the man says, letting us know he overheard while he fiddles with some controls. A monitor then blinks to life, and all over again I can hardly believe what I see. It's a video of Natasha out on the water, captured from my imagined first-person perspective. How? Is all I can say.
"Well, the hard part came long before any of this, when 2 technologies were developed,"
Peter says.
"First, we developed a way of interpreting brainwaves in a visual and aural manner. This was first achieved in creating movies from dreams, and when I say we in this context, I speak for the entirety of my underground scientific community. Secondly, we developed a method to impose vivid environmental parameters within which we could confine the subconscious imagination of a subject. In this case, those parameters form the world of Indigo Sands. With those technologies at our disposal, recording and replaying the product of your imagination over the past week is a relatively trifling process.
Okay, even for someone as jaded and ultra-connected as me, this feels like a colossal privacy violation. Above all else, they've been watching and recording my imagination? I don't know what to say. Seriously, more than ever before in my life, I don't even know where to start.
We can even have several visitors linked into one simulation,
Peter continues,
so that a family or other group can arrive together and enjoy the same group experiences which they will collectively remember when they leave. The challenges of this now are relatively minor given the technologies we have, but even I can recognize that the outcomes are remarkable. We don't need a huge staff on hand either, just enough to check on the stability of our guests, nutrient intake, and dealing with natural excretions, all the nitty-gritty things like that.
It's a lot to take in, the female psychologist interjects. I see that she's wearing a security lanyard naming her as Amy Harrisburg. She clearly doesn't need any crazy neuro uplink, if that's even close to the right word for any of this, to know that I'm upset by the whole replay situation. It's just incredible, I say. No one else says anything. This is the most incredible thing I've ever seen, by far, I continue. But everything in there, everything that was so perfect, it was all a lie. You're all liars, and you've been watching me, watching my imagination, the imagination I thought was real, all while my body lay there unconscious. I feel so violated.
Just breathe,
Jason says, the condescending asshole that he is.
You knew Indigo Sands wasn't real when you agreed to go in. It's just an extra level of not real than you thought. That's all.
Did you know? I ask. Jason doesn't reply.
Look, B, what counts is that Indigo Sands is going to be huge, and the metrics from your early involvement with the brand will be a lifesaver for us.
He beams.
As long as you can push some 17 and 18s in the streaming hour counts next week, we won't lose that much momentum from this week off. Pretty sweet, huh? Don't worry about how you feel right now, superstar. This has been a worthwhile week.
Metrics. 18-hour streaming days. Life as a we with Jason. I step towards the office's door again and look out at the pods. The dome doesn't look like much now, but I know what it can be. I've seen what it can be, and I've felt what it can be, and believe me, the real life that's waiting for me on the other side of this dome can't stack up against it. Sure, the creeps like Peter have been voyeuristically watching my real-time imaginings when I thought that was my real life playing out. But how different is that really from my life on the outside, when 5 million strangers are likely to be watching my day-long live stream at any given moment? At least in Indigo Sands I felt happy. Peter, I say. He turns to me, eager anticipation on his face.
Yes, Bianca.
I gulp away my hesitation and force out the words. I want to go back in. Chapter 8. As soon as I say I want to go back to the virtual world of Indigo Sands, Amy the psychologist stands up. That's not entirely unexpected, she says, speaking in a well-practiced way that I can see through as an attempt to talk me down from the idea. The nature of the pod allows it to provide a level of bliss that is unattainable in reality but indistinguishable from reality. So in one regard, a desire to return is quite natural. Her colleague, whose lanyard identifies him as Li Zhao, rises to his feet beside her. Actually, I fundamentally disagree with Amy's view that the choice of living a pleasurable fiction over a real life is one that any significant number of people would make. If the choice was to be permanent, your answer would be different, Bianca. No, it wouldn't, I countered. Well, Lee, looks like I'm 1 for 1 so far, Amy gloats. Lee shakes his head. The circumstances here are unique. There's a feeling of deceit, for one thing, which might be creating a compulsion in the subject to voluntarily return as a means of feeling some semblance of personal control over the earlier violation. I'm standing right here, and I'm no one's subject, I retort. I don't like being talked about like this.
I'm sorry, Lee says.
But anyway, Amy says, motioning for him to sit down and then turning to face me again. Bianca, the point is that if people know it's a simulation that they can enter without any negative consequence, I believe many would want to stay. That's why no one outside of the company can ever learn about these pods, and that's why none of us will have any recollection of this conversation when we leave this room. Okay, hold up. I've seen and heard some things in the past 5 minutes, but did she just say what I think she said?
This next clip is a regular recording,
Peter said, recapturing my attention at his monitor.
Bianca, this clip is not from your imagined thoughts. This was recorded an hour before we reawakened you in here.
I gulp. What am I going to see now? Whatever is coming, I can't look away. A car appears on screen. It's the car I got in earlier. It drives out of the dome and parks before long. The feed changes quickly. Now it's showing me sleeping in the back seat rather than only showing the car. I begin to stir and my eyes slowly open.
You merely imagined leaving the dome with your eyes open,
Peter explains.
In reality, you were unconscious at that point, freshly lifted from the pod. Sedated, in effect. The Bianca in this footage, who woke up in the real world just over an hour ago, fully believes she has experienced a wonderful week in a physical resort. Just watch.
With little choice, I do keep watching. I see myself wake up, at which point the door opens and Amy the psychologist is standing outside, without her lanyard. Hi, she beams. I'm Amy from the Indigo Sands customer satisfaction team, and before you board your flight home today, I'd like to ask a few questions about your stay. I invite Amy into the car and basically talk her ear off for 5 minutes about how great a time I've had. When I'm done, she asks a bunch of questions, and when all of that's done, she motions to leave. Oh, and don't forget to grab another cocktail while you can, she smiles. I say I'm okay, at which point she reaches into her pocket and, oh my God, she leans in while I'm not looking and injects my thigh with a goddamn needle. Back in the moment, watching this on screen, I lunge towards her in rage only for Jason to step in. I was just doing my job, real-time Amy says, somewhat less friendly than she was in the video. And you don't remember any of that, just like you won't remember any of this. You will go back into the pod, if only for long enough for Peter to repeat the memory erasure process so you can return to the car once again. I'll have someone else act as the customer rep this time, on the infinitesimal off chance that my face might trigger something in your mind given the short time frames involved.
The focused memory erasure process is perfect, Amy,
Peter insists, matter-of-fact in his tone rather than defensive in any way. I don't know who or what to look at. How much did Jason know? How much will he be allowed to remember? Does any of that matter? One thought rises to the top. Why is this happening? Like, this part, right now. Why are they telling me when they're only going to make me forget? I ask, using pretty much those exact words. Unsurprisingly, it's the main man who answers.
You presented a unique opportunity,
Peter says.
You were our first live run, if you will, presenting a chance to stress test every aspect of the system. You see, the experience you had prior to your second awakening is the experience every other guest at Indigo Sands will have. If Amy hadn't put you back to sleep, and if we hadn't deliberately woken you up here for all of this, you would be on your way home thinking it was all real. Well, physically real. You know what I mean. You would still think that Indigo Sands physically exists in a dome full of technological wonders, not as a mere figment of your imagination.
But why did you wake me and tell me all of this? I repeat.
I wasn't finished, Peter says. After their imagined checkout from Indigo Sands, every other guest's sedated body will be taken to a car in the liminal access bay, and they will awaken shortly after the car emerges into the outside world. They will exit the car of their own physical volition just as they entered it prior to the start of this whole process. They will have entered Indigo Sands believing it is a technology-enhanced physical resort, and they will exit Indigo Sands believing the same thing. As you know, you will ultimately exit in such a manner too, following a second focused memory erasure and a second exit procedure to place your resting body in the car. For all intents and purposes, this conversation right now, other than to further our understanding of what would happen if a subject awoke in the wrong circumstances, and other than to confirm the potency of our procedures, well, this conversation might as well have never happened.
Oh, so that's why it happened. To give them data on a worst-case scenario of someone waking up at the wrong time, and to double-check their memory erasure process. Twice in one day. Lucky me.
You're going to have to get back in so they can do it,
Jason says. I wonder why the silent lawyers are here, because seriously, why do they have to see this? Maybe they're executives rather than lawyers. Maybe they're the real project leaders keeping tabs. Maybe Jason lied about them being lawyers, or maybe they lied to him. Either way, both of them stay seated even as Amy, Lee, and Peter start closing in around me. My eyes scan all around. I have to find a way out. This isn't even just about me. The level of deceit going on here, the level of violation on an emotional and human level that so many people are going to experience. And all of that without even thinking about the privacy nightmare that comes with creeps like Peter watching their subconscious imaginings. I can't let this happen. I can't let them get away with this. I run out of the office and put some distance between myself and the others, but it looks like there's absolutely no way out. Desperate, I stop behind a pod and try to think.
Get your needle ready in case you get closest, you idiot,
Peter barks at Jason.
If we get her for the erasure, we'll do yours like we talked about and everything will be fine. But if anything goes wrong, this is on your ass.
I look at Jason, wondering for a second what he'll do. And there we have it. I shouldn't have wondered. I should have known. Proving himself once and for all as a self-serving rat, Jason reaches into his pocket. In a fluster, he grabs something and pulls it out. It's the wrong something, though, so he goes again and this time pulls out a syringe. But not before I saw what else he has in there. It was my watch. And although I can't be totally certain it's on, that gives me an idea. One idea. One idea to stop this madness in its tracks. One idea to make sure these sickos don't get away with this. All or nothing. One idea. I close my eyes, gulp away the doubt, and run towards the needle-toting Jason. Chapter 9. I sprint towards Jason, taking him and everyone else completely by surprise. Schedule post. Current recording, 24 hours. I say as loudly and as clearly as I can when I feel like I'm close enough without getting too close. Dual biovocal cancellation only. Code: Indigo Sands is a memory-erasing lie and they violated me in a plastic pod. Everyone looks around at everyone else for a few seconds, then they all settle on Jason. He alone knows what I've just done, and I find my eyes settling on him to determine whether or not it's worked. If it has, if my watch is powered on and either directly or indirectly receiving any of the many kinds of network signal its expensive technology can use to access the internet, I'll have just struck a killer blow. If it works, I've just scheduled something to post to all of my socials in 24 hours, and that something is an audio recording of the last 5 minutes. Like I was thinking about before I went into the dome, my watch is always recording and always erasing the old recordings unless I save or schedule them. I also took care to set a dual biovocal cancellation requirement, which means the post can only be canceled if my iris looks into a camera while my thumb touches a trackpad and my voice says the magic words. In short, it can't be stopped without me. Jason glances at the watch and immediately closes his eyes in obvious dismay. The watch is telling him what he's telling me. The plan worked. It worked! Okay, game on, I say. If you guys erase my memory, I can't cancel the post before it goes out. I'd have to say, Indigo Sands is a memory-erasing lie and they violated me in a plastic pod, which would maybe bring all of this back and might sound even worse than what's actually happening anyway. There's nothing you can do. Everything you've said in the past 5 minutes will go public unless I stop it. and I can't stop it if you don't leave me with these memories intact. And needless to say, if this goes out, you're all finished. The whole thing is finished, but you'll all be in big personal legal trouble, too.
What do you even want?
Peter booms, sounding awfully defeated all of a sudden.
Why would you schedule it instead of just posting it now? What do you want?
Well, I was thinking it gives me some leverage to get out of here rather than leave them with nothing to lose, but I'm hardly going to say that now.
And why should we think you won't post it anyway?
Amy butts in. I suppose you can't know that I won't, I say. But my word means something, and if you pivot this whole thing and market Indigo Sands for what it really is, I'll still endorse it. Everyone looks stunned all over again. Is there another word for stunned? I've been stunned so many times, all week and especially today, and now it's their turn. I've had an incredible week here, I say. Seriously. If you had told me what this really was and had shown me footage, I still would have come. You might not be able to charge people quite as much as if they thought it would be a physical experience, but they'll still come, and then the word of mouth will be incredible. I just can't get behind this level of deceit, and I'd need to see the safeguards to make sure none of your staff are purveying on people's imagined experiences like you all were on mine.
You'll still endorse?
Jason asks, suddenly excited.
You know, if our hosts pay sufficient emotional damages and so on.
I can almost see the dollar signs spinning in his eyes as he salivates over how much extra money he can milk from them. Jason, you're fired, I tell him. And don't even waste your breath mentioning the contract that stopped me from doing this until now, because if you stand in my way and try to leech another cent out of me, the post goes out. You'd be finished too, for your part in this. A new source of movement catches my eye at the door of the office where we all were a few minutes ago. I turn to see the two suited men.
Ulrich Vinna, one of them says. And this is my father, Lars.
I know that name.
Vinna.
Vinacorp. Why did it take me so long? They're only the biggest tech company in the world.
Talk to me about your experience,
Ulrich says.
You mentioned it being incredible. You think this is viable even if people know it is all virtual?
100%, I say. Don't get me wrong, I don't like these guys. They set all of this up and were standing idly by, or sitting idly by, while I was struggling for answers and running away from sharp needles. For now, though, talking calmly to this guy seems like my best route out of here. Something one of your psychologists said stuck with me, I say. That pod and the neurohelmet thing sensed my deepest desires and gave them to me. Natasha, the woman I met and became friends with. Video making, the one thing I used to love doing more than anything else. Because of what happened in there, I know what's missing in my life out here. You could definitely sell this as a leisure break, but I see serious value as a meditative experience, too. You know, if you start being a lot more responsible about how you run your operations and who you have in charge of things. I don't think I need to throw a stink-eye glance at Peter and Amy to make my point clear, but I do it anyway.
The public opening of Indigo Sands is delayed indefinitely,
Ulrich announces, to instant complaint from everyone besides me and his father. Jason knows he isn't getting paid, for this or anything else I ever do, while Peter and the psychologists know their time at the company is short. I don't know exactly what's going to happen to them, be it an ironic taste of their own medicine in the form of memory erasure or whatever else, but they don't seem to think it'll be anything good. That part, at least, sure is not my problem.
Go,
Ulrich says to me, speaking sharply as he presses a button to open a door in the side of the dome.
I have some respect for what you've done here, but bear in mind I am a powerful man, Bianca. It would be in no one's interest for that footage to ever be heard by anyone else. I'll be paying attention to your public posts.
The threat is clear, but in a sense I can respect that too. A deal is a deal. And I'll be paying attention to your marketing materials and how you describe all of this, I say. Power comes in many shapes and forms, Ulrich. An audience of millions gives me a certain degree of my own. I start walking as soon as I finish talking, straight through the door and out to the world beyond. I get my luggage first, which was beside the pod, and I even take my watch from Jason's defeated and outstretched hand. He knows it's useless. I ask for my phone, assuming he has that too, and sure enough, he does.
Please, I'll change,
he says as he hands it over. I walk away.
B, remember the good times,
Jason calls after me.
Think of the houses, the cars. We did it all together. I gave you all of it.
As I get further away and the penny drops that I'm not for turning, he stops begging and starts with the insults about how ungrateful I am and how I'm nothing without him. How there are a million girls like me and how he made the difference, yada yada yada. It's raining when I get outside, and I've never been happier to feel it. For the first time in years, I'm truly free. Free from Jason, and to be honest, maybe also from a prison of my own mental creation. My week in Indigo Sands showed me what's missing in my life. Real friends, true human connection, time for myself. I have a huge online following that I'm very grateful for. But now I can see that the gratification it brings is hardly any realer than the pleasure the pod gave me inside the dome. Real life doesn't happen in a pod, and it doesn't happen on the leaderboard of a streaming platform. I'll cancel the post for sure, but I'm canceling a whole lot more than that. As soon as I get into the taxi, I start recording a video. Hey guys, this is BB with an important update. You won't be seeing as much of me as you're used to, but I don't want you to take this as bad news. Under a cloudy London sky, I'm free. And believe me, freedom feels good. The end. Thank you for listening to Too Good to Be True, written by Craig A. Falconer, narrated by Megan Carter. Text and production copyright 2021 by Craig Falconer. All rights reserved.